Usually in games, you start out as a weak level 1 player, but the more experience you get, the stronger you get and the easier it becomes to defeat the enemies. But where's the challenge in that? That's why I create a game that only real gamers can play, where you start out with all your strength, but the more XP you get, the weaker you become, and you actually level down. Then, when you reach level 0, you finally beat the game. I made this whole game on stream, and a lot of ideas actually came from you guys, so if you want to be a part of my next game, make sure you subscribe. Before I started the game, I had in mind that I wanted this to be a top-down roguelike wizard-themed survival game, kinda like Vampire Survivors, but with wizards. So first off, we needed a player. I started by drawing up this sprite for a little wizard guy, and then I made sure to give him that big beard. Then I got it into Unity and I coded up some basic movement for him. Now, since I'm kinda lazy, I decided to just make a walking animation for him swaying back and forth. After that, the next thing we needed to start working on was the wand. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really have an eye for artistic stuff because this was the first wand I created. But since you guys were in the chat, after some suggestions, we got looking like this, and I think it looks 100 times better. The next thing I worked on was making it so the wand would point towards your mouse, which is how you would aim it. After that, I thought it was looking a little plain with just the player and the wand, so I created these dirt particles using Unity's particle system to add a little bit more life to the scene. Then finally, for the first day, I finished by creating the first spell for the game, which is a fireball. Again, I went back and forth with you guys for a little bit, and we eventually settled on this design, which I think looks pretty good. Then I set it up to shoot out of the end of your wand, and that was looking pretty good for day 1. The second day was all about combat. The first thing I did was add some lighting effects to the player and the wand to make it feel a little bit better. Then I started working on making the fireball have more of an impact when you shoot it. I added this little recoil effect to the wand and some particles that shoot off the top of it as well. Next up, we needed our first enemy, the skeleton. I started again by drawing the sprite for it, but one of you guys had the genius idea to add blush to it. So here that is, I guess. Anyways, next I drew up its arms as the other bones, and I got it into Unity. The skeleton needed a walk cycle, and my first attempt for it wasn't great. Yeah, that looks, I think, horrible, honestly. But then, with some help from my viewers, I got it looking like this, and next up, we needed to make it actually attack you. I wanted the skeleton to be a ranged enemy, so I took the same bone sprite for the arms, and I made it so when the skeleton gets close enough to you, it'll stop moving and throw the bones at you. Finally, I made them react to getting hit by turning red and shaking. This enemy's mechanics actually took me way longer than I expected because you guys kept distracting me when I was trying to code. So that's all I got done for day 2. But the good news is I can reuse the same enemy script for all my other enemies down the road. At the start of day 3, we finished the enemies by giving them a health bar and a particle system of bones falling when they die. I think the particle system we came up looks perfect for this type of death, and we don't need to make an animation now. After that, since I didn't really want them just to be walking in some sort of desert, I decided to create the background. Now, I wanted this game to take place in either a castle or a library, but you guys had some wild ideas like an alien world or an abandoned mansion. But I eventually went for this generic purple ground tile to put in the background. Then I also ended up creating these brown wood boards to go across the purple background just to break it up a little bit and be able to tell where you're at. After that, I was creating a basic health bar for the player and some UI placeholders when I looked at chat and I saw you guys all talking about sands. One of you had the genius idea to add sands in as an Easter egg for the skeleton, and since I already had a sand sprite drawn up for one of my other projects, I tossed it in there and it actually looked really good. So now in the actual game, there will be a 1 in 5 chance the skeleton spawns as sands. Finally, the last thing for day 3 was to create the next enemy, the spider. I drew up the sprite for it, which I think actually looks pretty good, and then I drew up the legs separately to animate it. Then when I imported into Unity, I created this animation for it walking. Now the way the spider enemy is going to work is it'll be walking towards you, then on a random timer, it'll dash at you trying to attack you. Now with all the enemies, this is starting to work really well. After that, we needed more spells. The first spell I had in mind was a wind spell. I drew up this sprite for the wind particle that'll get shot out of your wand, then I started on its mechanics. The way this spell is going to work is whenever an enemy is hit by the spell, it'll get knocked backwards. This spell will be especially useful for when the spiders are trying to dash at you and you'll be able to counter it. Then I created these UI elements of the spells to be able to show if they're on cooldown or not. And now that there will be a limit making it so you can't spam the spells. After that, we wanted one more spell, so we decided to make a poison area attack. First, I tried drawing an area for it and it looked like a poison cookie or something, but don't worry, it gets better later. But the way the spell is going to work is in 2 stages. The first stage you'll spray out these green bubbles, then in the second stage the area would spawn and any enemies that walked in that area would take damage. Then, after you guys absolutely roasted me for how bad this looked, I decided to remake the poison puddle and now it looks so much better. Then I set it up to actually make the enemies take damage, and this works really well because you're able to combo it with your other spells like the wind spell and knock them into the puddles. Now that we had pretty much everything for the main combat and gameplay, the next day we worked on the XP and actually leveling down. First, I made the actual XP pickup, then I made it so when you defeat an enemy, it'll explode these XP particles everywhere, and you'll be able to collect them. Then I made the actual XP bar, and I made it so when it gets full, you'll shrink in size to show that you're leveling down. Then, since you guys kept asking for another enemy, I eventually decided to make a zombie. This one was actually really fun to make because I'd already had its main mechanics from the spider, so I could focus mainly on the art. I ended up making the sprite for the zombie, which I think looks pretty good. And then I think it also fits into the style of the other enemies in the game already. Then I was making the other limbs separate like I did for everything else, and I accidentally made the leg huge, so I guess the zombie's gonna look like a bodybuilder now. Then I created an animation for it that someone said looks like Mr. Krabs walking, but I honestly love it. Then, for the actual mechanics of the zombie, I just did the old Control-C, Control-V for the spider and I got rid of the dash. But then the thing that'll make the zombie different from the spider is that it'll knock you back when it hits you. Finally, for the last day, all we had left to do was the menus and the UI. I created this game over screen that shows up when you die or get to level 0, and I also made a main menu screen with a how to play and a credits screen where I show all of you guys that gave me suggestions. Then finally, we couldn't come up with a good name for the game, so I decided to take all of your guys' suggestions and make a random name each time you play. Now let's try it out. Alright, dropping into the wizard game where you level down. Looking like the first enemies coming is these zombies here. Taking them out, loading up some of that XP. Uh-oh, skeleton coming. Groups of them. Oh, it looks like we got a Sans already. Little Easter egg in there. Trying to use the poison puddles on them. The spider. There we go, we're getting there. Down to level 7 already. Getting a little easier to run away from them now. The XP does get harder to collect the lower level you get. It's like we're about to die, what the heck? So, that's how I made a game where you level down. This was so fun to make on stream, and I love how chaotic the game turned out with all your guys' ideas. The game is on my itch.io page and the link is in the description. Go play and see if you can find Sans or if there are any funny names in there, and come back and comment your favorite ones. Thank you so much for watching, and thanks to all the people that helped me make the game.